Hi, and welcome to RACQ's Parent Plates program, a guide to help you help your teenager get their driver's license while keeping them safe on the road. In the previous video, we discussed how your teenager can obtain their driver's license in Queensland and how you can best prepare yourself for the role of supervisor. Now, let's look at the role driving schools can play in your teenager's driving journey and how to structure a driving lesson to give your teenager a meaningful experience each time you head out on a supervised drive. Without doubt, using a driving school will help your learner to become a safe and competent driver. An added advantage is that every hour of daytime driving with an accredited trainer counts for 3 hours in your logbook, up to a maximum of 10 actual hours or 30 logbook hours. When looking for a driver trainer, cheaper is not always better. So here's some questions you can ask your driving instructor before you commit. What's taught in the first lesson? How is a typical lesson structured? Do you use dual-controlled vehicles? What's the average number of lessons most pupils need? How can you accommodate for my teenager's learning style? Are you an accredited Keys to Drive driving school? What happens if you and my teenager don't connect? Do you have a refund policy? Can I, as their parent, be a passenger during a lesson? Will my teenager have the same instructor each lesson? And what happens if my teenager is involved in an at-fault crash? RACQ has accredited a number of driving schools throughout Queensland who must adhere to strict operational and professional guidelines. Go to racq.com for more details. Now, at some point, you'll face the prospect of delivering a supervised driving lesson with your teenager. RACQ strongly recommends enrolling in the Department of Transport's Prep L Supervisors course. Simply log on to the TMR website in the quick links below. A further preparation is to book a Keys to Drive driving lesson. Keys to Drive is a federal government-backed program which offers the learner and supervisor a free driving lesson together with an accredited professional driving instructor. The driving lesson is not only directed at teaching the learner, but also towards coaching you, the supervisor, in new ways to guide the learner during a typical lesson. You can book your free lesson by visiting the Keys to Drive website at keystodrive.com.au. When your teenager takes lessons from you, it's helpful to always follow the same lesson structure. There's a simple way to structure your driving lesson by following the 3 T's: task, tell, and talk. Step 1 is to decide the driving task to be practiced in the lesson. For example, road position, merging at speed, or right-hand turns. It's a good idea to decide on just 1 or 2 driving tasks so as not to overwhelm your teenager. And obviously, the driving tasks need to meet the skill level of the driver. Start your lesson planning a few days out by asking what task your teenager would like to practice during the lesson. Have your teenager research the steps which make up the skill, so that they can explain it to you during the lesson. You could also ask them what observations, judgment, or hazard awareness is required to safely execute the skill. The second step before starting the lesson is to have the learner tell you how they think they'll do the task. For example, if the skill is changing lanes, have the driver explain the steps required to perform the successful lane change. Remember, you've planted this seed prior by asking them to think about the skill they'd like to practice. The final step is to talk about whether the skill during the lesson has been met or not. As the supervisor, your role is to give positive and encouraging feedback, outlining what parts of the skill were met or not met. Something which needs to be emphasised here is that the demonstration of driving skills is a minor part of any driver training. In fact, focusing on driving skills alone can lead your teenager thinking they're a better driver because they have the skills. As a supervisor, your aim is to develop your teenager to be a wise driver, making good judgments rather than a skilled driver who's mastered driving skills but can't anticipate hazards. And most importantly, driving needs to focus on risk awareness. And the best way to develop this is to expose your learner to a variety of driving experiences. So take the opportunity to vary the route to school and home, or even longer drives. Can you see that by using this simple 3-step process, task, tell, and talk, the entire focus of the lesson is the learner discovering for themselves the skills required, rather than you telling them what you think they need to know. The do-as-I-say approach to driver training only results in the learner feeling overwhelmed and controlled, which is never the best way to learn. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's not the way I learnt, and I turned out okay, and that's fine. But give this self-discovery method a go, and I'm sure you'll be surprised at just how effective it is to teach your teenager to be a safe and competent driver. Once your learner has accumulated and recorded 100 hours of supervised driving and is 17 years of age, they are now eligible for their provisional licence. As their supervisor, you should feel that your learner is competent enough to begin driving on their own. To move from a learner licence to the first level of provisional licence, called a P1 licence, you must first submit the learner logbook, followed by a practical driving test. Once you submit the logbook, the Department of Transport will then SMS or email you to confirm that it's a true and correct document. This can take at least 12 business days. Once your logbook has passed, you can book your practical driving test by phoning 13 23 80. And finally, to obtain a P1 licence, you must complete the hazard perception test. This is an online test which measures your ability to identify and respond to dangerous driving situations. The test can be taken at qld.gov.au/transport/licensing. If your teenager has held a P1 licence for at least 12 months and is at least 18 years of age, they're now eligible to obtain a P2 provisional licence. When driving, a P2 driver must display green P plates and only drive vehicles allowed on this licence class. If your learner is under 25 years of age when being issued with a P2 licence, they must hold that licence for a period of 2 years before graduating to an open licence. To sum up, driving schools can play an important role in setting your teenager up to be a safer driver. When supervising your teenager through their 100 hours of driving practice, structure the lesson by using the simple plan of task, tell, and talk. Remember, when it comes to supervising your teenager, resist the notion to direct them. The lesson should be about self-discovering the skills which need to be demonstrated in an atmosphere of trust and support. In the next video, we'll discuss the inner workings of the teenage brain and uncover why provisional drivers are overrepresented in crash statistics. These insights will be critical in keeping your teenagers safe well beyond their early driving experience.